Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 million by 1 million strategy roundtable for entrepreneurs. 1M by 1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. In support of that mission, we've been doing these free mentoring roundtables year after year after year since the fall of 2008. It started with an experiment of online mentoring, and it was a successful experiment that then blossomed into the full-fledged 1 million by 1 million acceleration program. This is the 545th session. More than 200,000 people have been here through the years and the months and the weeks. So over the course of a year, we are almost every week we're here, minus maybe 4 or 5 weeks here and there. And you will find recordings of every single roundtable on our YouTube channel, 1M1M Roundtable. On Twitter, we're at 1M1M and at Romana. The hashtag for today is 1M1M. It is a roundtable. You're most welcome to participate, weigh in, ask questions to any of us on the panel. I will put the slide back up a little bit later. We do have a very, very interesting scheduled program today. So today we're not doing entrepreneur pitches, but we are launching a very exciting program. So we are launching the Datastax 1M by 1M Startup Accelerator. And here with me to talk about the program are Chet Kapoor, CEO of Datastax, and Ed Anna, Chief of Product at Datastax. Welcome, Ed. Welcome, Chet. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Sarna. We are super excited. As the audience may not know, we've known each other for quite some time, and I've seen how this program has grown from the beginning, and it is just great work. At the end of the day, we are excited because we like creating, and the way you're doing this on a global scale is awesome. It's really awesome. So we're really excited.
I think we're going to create some very interesting, exciting company. We were just brainstorming right before we turned the program live about some of the ways in which we can connect the dots. Some of what Steve Jobs, Chet, you worked for Steve Jobs at Next. One of his mantras is connecting of the dots, and you don't really see connecting of the dots when you're doing it looking ahead, but you see how the dots connect when you look back. But I think, what the kind of things we're talking about now is, I think we can deliberately connect these dots in a forward-looking way. So let's actually start by introducing and articulating the vision for the Datastax 1M by 1M Accelerator. I'll let you start, Chet, and Ed and I will chime in.
No, for sure. I joined Datastax in October of 2019. Saw a massive opportunity at Datastax on delivering products that developers love, and that also changed the trajectory of the enterprises that they work for, right? That combination of developers and enterprises. So the option to solve hard problems with great people while having fun was why I chose Datastax. And Datastax was originally founded to make Cassandra easier to use and to run and to manage, right? And we all know, right? And increasingly so, right? We all know that data is the most important part of any modern architecture, right? There are companies now that are figuring out the value of data and how it shows up as part of the balance sheet, right? That's how important data is becoming, not just from a business value perspective, but also from a modern architecture. So it's a very exciting time to be able to do this. And we really want to continue to find ways to support developers as they build these game-changing apps, right? Give them the technology so they can focus on really solving some of these forward-thinking applications that enterprises need. So the 1 million by 1 million accelerator is an awesome opportunity to help developers to become great entrepreneurs so that they can use Cassandra and all the other open source technologies that we are making available to build modern data applications.
Great. So folks, we will spend more time on specifics of the program in a moment, but let's start with some of the basics. What is Cassandra, and why do the open source developer community love it so much? Ed, would you like to take this one?
Sure, be happy to. So, Cassandra has been the database for startups that have been serious about scale from day one. It was created at Facebook based on technology, based on research that had been done on Amazon and at Google as to how to deal with data for applications that touch millions of users. If you look at over the years, every major startup has that is doing true internet scale has ended up with Cassandra somewhere in its architecture. If you look at the largest startups that have been successful, they've used Cassandra. I see these every day. If you look at, if, for example, Waze, Apogee, many others that of the big startups that have been acquired were all based on Cassandra. Obviously, Netflix has been on Cassandra since the beginning. Many of the social platforms people use, Twitter contributed to the development of Cassandra, very early on. Apple runs major parts of their infrastructure on Cassandra. So if you're serious about internet scale, there really isn't any other option than Cassandra, and smart smart CTOs, smart startups, architects all end up going to it. So that's part of what attracted us to it, and it's part of why we think it's so great. Cassandra is the product of a community that consists of some of the best technologists on the internet. We just released 4.0 that is the product of thousands of hours of testing by folks at Netflix and Apple and Datastax and a dozen other companies that have been using this to power all of the services that people depend on. So it's become rock solid. The thing that we saw, was that Cassandra was the choice, if you had this, if you were serious about what you were doing. But we saw there was an opportunity to make it a lot easier to use, to make it a lot easier to run, to develop for. And so a lot of what we've been doing, for the last, couple of years has been going and doing that, giving you a document API so that Cassandra is now just as easy to use as any other database. A lot of developers like databases like Mongo because they use JSON data. Well, Cassandra does too now, and it's super easy to use. We see a lot of folks using GraphQL. New applications are being built on that. So bringing Cassandra to that, and then really just making it easy to use in the cloud. So these are the areas of focus that the Cassandra community has been focused on, and that Datastax has been focused on too. So it's something that if you're building these cool apps, if you're building the SaaS services of the future, at some point you're going to get into Cassandra. It's probably now is a great time to do that.
And the open source developer community is quite large. I think the current number is about 85,000 Cassandra developers out there. So there's a very robust skilled developer community that if you're trying to build a product on Cassandra, there is a robust developer community around it. My next question, Ed, also to you is, and I was looking at Quora to see what kind of developer questions are coming out around Cassandra and NoSQL. So one question I found that I thought would be interesting to develop for this session is NoSQL versus relational databases, etc. What is NoSQL? Why should developers care? What kinds of applications should be developed on a NoSQL database?
Yeah. So NoSQL is a term that is as good a description as any for what you see that databases like Cassandra do. I think 10 years ago the differences between SQL and NoSQL really focused on the query language. But these days, a database like Cassandra has a query language. Like we have something called CQL, Cassandra Query Language, that's very familiar for SQL developers. There's actually several ways that you can use SQL with Cassandra. But a lot of developers are building new applications, and so it really becomes a question of what is it that I'm trying to do with the data, not SQL versus NoSQL. And if you're building new applications, if you're dealing with new forms of data, if you're dealing with new forms of interactions, and so what I mean by that is a lot of people are building applications in languages like Node.js or Python or a bunch of other dynamic languages. And they are building their relationships in their applications in ways that are very dynamic. And so in those situations, mapping that to SQL certainly can be done, and plenty of people do it, but you may not be getting a lot of advantages from doing that. And that's why when you look at many of the new applications over the last, when I say new applications, I mean mobile apps, I mean, internet services, I mean, a lot of the things that we depend on a daily basis were not built on SQL because there wasn't that big a value add to it. And so the real question when we look at SQL versus NoSQL is what is it that's going to allow you to ship and deliver features the fastest? And at what places are you going to be fighting with the database? And NoSQL is better aligned with the way people are building applications right now. So that's the first thing I would answer on that. Second thing I would go and say is NoSQL was created for a reason, and that reason was because scaling out data using the traditional database architectures is very hard to do. And so the NoSQL databases do deal with that better. Like if you're using something like Cassandra, it lives within Kubernetes much better than any other database, certainly better than any relational database. If you're trying to go and do things like have users all over the world, everybody wants their startup to scale up to be the next Facebook. If you're going to do that, you're going to need a distributed data architecture. Most NoSQL databases do distributed data much better than relational databases. So there's a whole bunch of things that go together that will start to get you to look at these. Great.
So, at this stage of Datastax evolution, Datastax is a sizable company with a lot of enterprise customers and a lot of repeatability that you've already established in your customer base. You are solving real customer problems, and you have very good visibility into customer problems and use cases where Datastax, Apache Cassandra, NoSQL are being deployed very effectively. So let's spend some time talking about these great use cases that can become the basis of some great companies. And I think the audience, the way to think about what we're going to be discussing next is which of these use cases do you want to build a company around? Because validated use cases are gold. You go to an investor and you try to pitch them, oh, I have this idea. The investor is going to turn to you and say, what idea? Which customer likes this product? Or which customer has this pain? Where is the validation? Here. Datastax is on a platter offering you validated use cases to build companies around. So I am really excited about taking a different approach to company building, where we have a corporate partner who is really interested in bringing their knowledge and insights of enterprise customers and their pain points into the open source community, which I think is incredibly exciting. So over to you.
So this is great, and I'll give some examples here. We will actually get into a more published list of use cases, but let me start with the first one, which is managing massive data volume. It's a very general use case, but let me give you a very specific example. There's an investment bank and financial services group in Australia called the Macquarie Group. And the Macquarie Group has always been on the forefront of technology. They've always used technology as a way to differentiate themselves against investment banks, other investment banks that they compete with. But they needed a way to deal with massive amounts of data. They wanted to build a digital banking experience. And so what they did was they took Datastax and Cassandra, and for the first time ever, they built a 360-degree view of their customers. And they did that all in real time. So by making this happen, they allowed, everybody at Macquarie to create personalized products for their customers. And they, by the way, this is not just one-to-one, right? Please realize that Macquarie has 1 million users, right? So new value propositions that were personalized for all the customers of the bank, right? And that would not have been able to, they got that done with Cassandra because they focused on real-time data consolidation. You can only imagine the amount of data that they were actually processing in real time. So that's one use case. The second one that I love talking about.
Let me comment on that for a moment for entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs who are listening to this use case. If you have A, interest, and B, some domain expertise in financial services, this is clearly a scenario to dig into. There are, financial services is a very big vertical. So many companies have come into the market targeting financial services as their first entry point. So if you can really get into the depths of this use case and productize this use case, this can be a big enterprise software company. So make a note of that, bookmark this in your head, and definitely, if you're thinking of where to position a company, this is a great opportunity. Go ahead.
And I would go, that's a great point, Sarma. And I would go further, right? If you can actually nail the customer 360 from a financial services perspective, and that's what I would focus on, please realize this is a very horizontal use case that can apply to other industries as well. But I think it's best to start with a vertical orientation, just like you suggested.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The second one, I love talking about this because it happened during the pandemic, right? So let me start by it's about Home Depot and it's about curbside pickup. Home Depot has been using Cassandra for a while, right? And they've had 100% uptime. I think Ed talked about this for the last 5 years, right? And so what happened as soon as the pandemic came about, their in-store traffic dropped significantly, right? But with everybody staying at home, everybody wanted to do home improvement and the demand remained high. So they had to adjust very quickly on how they make this happen. And so they came up with this, they launched curbside pickup in less than 30 days, worldwide, in less than 30 days. They took an open data stack, right, that is completely based on Kubernetes, and they went really, really quick. They already had the availability and scale with Cassandra, but all the apps that all of us have used for curbside pickup in the last 18 months all happened in 30 days, and it was rolled out globally, right? This curbside pickup app increased their e-commerce sales by 100% last year, right? If you take a look at Home Depot, they are highly successful. But the most important part is it served the customer need. And so the takeaway from this, Ramana, just like you talked about, we talked about Macquarie Group and we talked about Customer 360, is continued. There is a shift in buying patterns in retail, and not just buying patterns, but fulfillment as well. And how do you think about coming up with new creative ways to enhance how retailers are already interacting with their customers?
Yeah, absolutely. Retail has gone through an existential crisis in COVID. So, one of the things that we have done through the COVID period is looked at startup ideas for the post-COVID world. And I think industry segments that have gone through major shifts, major existential crisis in COVID, and are still coping with that, airlines being one of them. The whole travel sector actually falls in that category, hotels and everything. There's a lot of use cases in those, and you just explained a very good one in retail. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the one with something like this, I mean, and this is why we're really excited to share these things. These are definitely, examples of the adage of the future being unevenly distributed. So Home Depot solved this problem, and they did a great job with it. But there's an opportunity for a startup to go and figure out, curbside customer management or curbside delivery, platform as a service that other retailers can use, because everybody's going to need to do this in some form. And so a lot of these things can be
retailers. Yeah, absolutely.
So
do you want to do any other use case?
I'll give you one really good, Macquarie and Home Depot are actually companies that people know, right? Macquarie is well recognized as a technology. The Home Depot we know. I've got one that I wanted it's probably a company you've not heard. It's a smaller company, but they are very successful. So it's a company called Ankeri, Ankeri, and they provide a cloud-based software platform for ship owners and charterers to manage and share ship data and collaborate for improved performance, right? I mean, it's a very startup kind of a thing, and that's what Ankeri is. So their leadership team saw a gap in the market around real-time data for the maritime shipping sector, right? But they needed to bring all this data from different ships, right? And all these different ships that have all these different applications, and they had to bring it all together in real time. So what they wanted to do was provide a trusted source of data to multiple ship owners and operators. So they bring all this data, they analyze it, and they wanted to make sure that it was delivered in a very trusted way. So what we did with Ankeri is we provided a pay-as-you-go model so that Ankeri could actually go off and have flexibility on costs, but also be able to deliver, right, the innovations very, very quickly, right? Because it may not sound like it, right? You're thinking about maritime shipping sector, what's the innovation? But you're getting data about weather, currents, everything, right? So you are actually innovating very quickly, and it's great to see them, do this all with Cassandra and other open source technologies for real-time data analysis and delivery.
I resonate greatly with this one because I'm a shipping entrepreneur's daughter. My father started one of the first container shipping companies in the 70s. It was called Himalaya Shipping. And so I grew up in this, for basically all my childhood was steeped in shipping information and chartering and all of that stuff. So I think the message from what you said is that there are a lot, retail everybody knows about, financial services everybody knows about, but there are a lot of industry segments that are less discussed. In technology, they're less discussed, but if you have domain knowledge in those segments, you can build incredibly interesting companies focusing on solving problems that are specific to those industry sectors.
Yeah, and the time to do that is there's no better time to do it now, right? I mean, the value of data is so high across the board. And I don't know if there's a single industry, not a single one, that is not going some level of disruption, right? With everything happening in the world, right? So I think this is a great time.
And all every single investor nowadays wants to talk about AI. Well, you don't do AI without data, so you can only do AI on top of data, and you have to manage the data and structure the data in a way that you can run algorithms and train algorithms on top of it. So yes, absolutely. So which is a good segue into what Datastax offers to developer entrepreneurs that we should emphasize, whether it's APIs, specific toolkits, etc. What would you like to highlight?
Well, I'm happy to jump in there. So first of all, we've been one of the things that we heard from a lot of startups was just, how do I get started with Cassandra? I'm out there building my business. I need to, I have if I'm doing a startup, I have expectations of massive growth, and I want to build for that. And so Cassandra is really attractive, but it's often hard to get started with, and that's part of why we built Astra, but not just built it, but in terms of how we're making it available to developers. So what I would say is, first of all, we provide for people getting started, we provide a very generous free tier, so people can get started on it. And so I would make sure that going as you're looking and selecting, your database and building on top of it, make sure that you're giving it a try. And we've got, and we've got a bunch of resources for helping people out on all fronts on it, technically, how to get the most out of it, how to launch as quickly as possible. And then we have a lot of programs for startups. Again, anybody, who wants to, gets enough credits that they can launch their service, they can do their MVP, and everything on top of it. And so people should take advantage of that. But we also do have specifically startup programs, the stuff that we're working with you on, as well as, on a case-by-case basis for folks that are scaling up even beyond that, where we're there to look and help invest more, because we want to, Cassandra was built, the success of Cassandra was built on startups. The reason why anybody knows about Cassandra today is because some of the largest, most successful startups were built on top of it. And so we want to keep that going.
Great. So we should spend some time talking about what kinds of companies are we looking for in the Datastax 1M1M accelerator. I'll run through a few categories of developers, and I would like to comment on them, and please weigh in as you see fit. We are definitely looking for Apache Cassandra developers. There's no question. That is the starting point of this. If you're a NoSQL developer and you haven't made a bet yet on which database you're going to build your startup on, definitely consider the Datastax Cassandra infrastructure and for sure apply to the program with that intent. In general, the open source developer community interested in NoSQL for a particular use case, particular app, particular product, whatever you have in mind is fine as well. We are also, as we talked about earlier, as we started discussing the use cases, we will be publishing more use cases. You will, if you keep an eye on what's coming out of the Datastax 1M1M accelerator, we will be publishing more use cases that are validated use cases. So keep an eye on that and see if one of those appeal to you as one that you want to take away and run with it. And you will get lots of support from this program, from both Datastax and 1Mby1M to build a company around that thesis. Now, what kinds of entrepreneurs, what stage? We've talked about the development infrastructure, but let's talk about stage. Of course, if you already have an application, you've got a startup going, and you're looking for financing, absolutely, we will help you, go through with that financing. We have 1Mby1M works with hundreds of investors, like over 600 investors, and we have, in particular, very, very good early stage investors who are very interested in data-driven startups, AI and so on. So we will be able to bring you in right into that community. But there are also entrepreneurs who are earlier stage than being ready for financing, and you're also very welcome to apply. So we see a bunch of different styles of entrepreneurship happening out there, and we are happy to support all of those. One is developers who are bootstrapping startups using services. So you have a skill set around which you are providing, contract software services, software development services, etc., and your ambition is to build a product company out of this mode of business building. Please know that so many successful companies have built their enormous businesses starting off in this mode. One of my favorite examples is Alteryx. Alteryx started bootstrapping by services and then raised money much, much later and is today a multi-billion-dollar public company. Oracle itself, by the way, was started in this mode. So there are lots of precedents on this, and you will have plenty of support. We understand this very well because we do this a lot in 1 million by 1 million. And I will point you to some more learning resources in a moment on all of this. But let me switch gears and talk about another really exciting mode in which we are seeing incredible amount of entrepreneurship, especially COVID has really accelerated this mode of entrepreneurship, and that is developers bootstrapping with a paycheck. And that is a fancy name for basically people who have a job and are starting a company on the side. It's happening enormously out there. And Datastax itself was started in this mode. I remember when we did in 1 million by 1 million, we did the Datastax case study many years ago. The founders of Datastax came to pitch me, and we did a story, and I learned that they had bootstrapped using a paycheck inside of Rackspace, and Rackspace itself funded them. The seed funding of Datastax came from Rackspace. These guys, the founders, were employees of Rackspace. So we are very supportive of this mode of entrepreneurship as well. Feel free to, keep your paycheck, keep doing your day job, and start validating and start getting your feet wet and start learning. Learning is a very big part. If you start off being an entrepreneur, developer entrepreneur, and you haven't done this before and you don't have the business background, there's a lot of business pieces that you have to learn. And that's what you're going to learn very efficiently, very quickly, in a very pragmatic, practical way in 1 million by 1 million Datastax Accelerator. So we are all set up to turn you into successful entrepreneurs. So the other thing that's interesting, another category that you may want to think about, are developers that have already built products built on the Cassandra stack, and you're gaining some traction already, and you want access to the Datastax customer base. This is also a viable scenario, and you will get a lot of value out of plugging into this program through which we can bring you into the Datastax customer ecosystem. So there are many ways to think about it. And feel free to, by the way, ask as many questions as you want. I will start picking up questions from the public chat in a moment. We will open up the line for Q&A as well. We want to cover a few more things about the program. Did I miss anything? Ed, Chet, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered a lot of it, Shabna. This is the future of data is just awesome, and so we believe in that, and we are doing everything we can to make it easier for developers to build apps, and obviously things that affect enterprises. So anything that we can do to help the audience, we are here for you.
Great. So one question that is a frequently asked question in a scenario like this that I will preempt and just answer. Besides fundraising support, what else can you expect from the Datastax 1M by 1M Accelerator? Of course, there is methodology to learn. One thing we've done very well in 1 million by 1 million is develop methodology, proven methodology with which you can become a successful entrepreneur. And it's like putting one foot before the other. You have to validate, you have to position, you have to sell to 5 customers, and you have to scale to 50 customers, and you have to scale to 100 customers, and you have to scale to 500 customers. But each of those have methodology attached to it. And we will teach you all that methodology so that you can you don't go around spending time and wasting your runway on stuff that is irrelevant and doesn't matter. A lot of entrepreneurs do stuff that doesn't matter. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite 1M mantras is do not go to VCs as beggars, go as kings. The problem is too many entrepreneurs go to VCs with a begging bowl, with no validation, nothing, and they're just going and kind of begging around. And that begging does absolutely nothing useful. All you get are hundreds of rejections, and that's not helpful. It destroys your psychological, stability. Being on the receiving end of hundreds of rejections is just soul destroying. So please don't go prematurely to investors. And that's where we're going to, really help you figure out when you're ready, fundability, gauging fundability before we bring you into our investor network. And that's actually a very disciplined approach to, putting one foot before the other. You will get weekly online mentoring. In the program, we meet every week in mentoring roundtables. You can bring all your strategy questions, positioning questions, any kind of question that you are dealing with from a business strategy point of view to these roundtables, and I am completely accessible to help you through all of those issues. And then we have one of the best Rolodex between Datastax and 1 million by 1 million. We have one of the best Rolodexes that you can plug into, and whether it's introductions to potential customers, channel partners, media, analysts, other advisors, and of course investors, you will have access to this Rolodex as part of the program. If you win a scholarship through this program, you will have access to all of that. And lastly, we have a lot of clout in the media. I have 440,000 LinkedIn followers. And there are all kinds of other channels through which we can give you visibility. So that visibility also is very valuable to tell the world what is it that you are doing, how you're doing what you're doing, and why the world should pay attention. So that summarizes all the things that we offer through this Datastax 1M by 1M challenge. There's a bunch of questions. Maybe we should do a few questions before getting back to more stuff from us. Tajul Islam, does 1M by 1M mentor entrepreneurs from non-IT and non-finance backgrounds? Sorry for the surely awkward question, as my concept idea is basically related to civil and infrastructure, so I just got this down. So Tajul, everything we do is IT and IT-enabled services entrepreneurship. So whatever you're going to be doing is going to have to somehow or the other become a software or software-enabled services product. So your end customer base can be in civil and infrastructure, but you would need to cater to a problem domain within civil and infrastructure. You have to solve a problem of that industry with software. So does that answer the question that you're trying to ask? So while Tajul is figuring out whether I answered the question or not, Binu Zakaria is asking, I'm right now developing a social networking site using WordPress platform. Any suggestions or advice? WordPress is not a social networking platform developer. WordPress is very good for content management systems. So if you're trying to do a content site, that would be reasonable to develop on WordPress. So I don't know enough, but go ahead, Ed, please.
No, so I was just going to say I spent a little bit in the blogging platform space. WordPress has a bunch of features for being able to do various forms of social platform features. It's a big topic. I would say that the great thing about WordPress is that it has an extensive ecosystem. There's a lot of templates. There's a lot of plugins. There's a lot of features. We use it ourselves for some of the stuff we do. Some of our open source projects where we want to build a social community around it. We use WordPress for that. I would say that you know that really the question that I would look at with WordPress is if your goal is to bootstrap something very quickly and you're able to leverage the strength of the community, then that's where you're going to get a lot of benefit. As you grow larger, you'll probably have to find something else. But you know, WordPress is used by many. I believe more than half the websites on the web actually use WordPress. So I wouldn't. I think it's a good place to start. You know, you'll hit some boundaries on it, but you know that's as I said, we do use it ourselves for some of our
we do too, actually. 1Mby1M is built on one WordPress, but we're not really doing a social networking application. So that's what I was kind of reacting to a bit. Is that the right solution for building a social networking application? I'm not sure.
There are some features, but you know, the nice thing is there's a big community, so certainly it would be very easy to get those answers for folks, you know.
Samir Penkar, who is actually a 1Mby1M premium member, is asking, how do you think about the training and education opportunity around the Cassandra NoSQL ecosystem? And let me actually contextualize the question that Samir is asking based on my knowledge of who he is and what he is doing. So he has a simulation technology that he is applying to various kinds of training scenarios. And I think the question he's asking you is there an opportunity for him to apply his simulation technology in the Cassandra NoSQL training on the training problem?
I definitely, you know, what I would say is that we've seen that there's a tremendous interest in students and learners in acquiring Cassandra skills. We do a lot of the webinars and workshops we do are very well attended. We've seen a number of companies, other training companies now are adding Cassandra to the mix, and so I would expect so. I'd love to learn more about it and figure out how it's applicable, or some of the folks that are involved. Sean is answering some questions. Some of the folks from our developer organization that really do deal with these training, you know, these training activities, I'm sure would love to hear more about it and give some more sort of direct feedback as to where we're seeing the pain points.
It's great, actually. I was also just scrolling through the chat, and I'm not going to, the questions the Q&A that's happening with Binu and Tajul and Sean, I think Sean has already answered a bunch of the questions. I'm not rehashing those at the moment. Is there any other question? While you think about other questions to ask, let me, here's one. Pranav Upadhyay says, if I haven't submitted my idea yet, is it possible to submit my idea for later rounds? Oh, submissions haven't even started yet. Let's look at the timeline here. So the Datastax 1Mby1M Startup Challenge officially kicks off today. Winners will be rewarded with $10,000, 1-year all-inclusive license to entire Datastax Astra database, and 1-year scholarship to the 1Mby1M premium program, which normally costs you $1,000 per year. Here are some dates to think about, and the URL for the application is on your screen, and Maureen or Sean can share this URL in the public chat as well so that you can bookmark it. The deadline to apply is Thursday, October 28th. You have a bit of time to look around and refine your application and do some learning. I'm going to give you some learning resources in just a moment, but Thursday, October 28th is your application deadline, and we will announce the winners on Thursday, November 11th. Let me quickly run you through the 3-minute kind of 1M program description on if you win the scholarship, you are coming into this program, and this is what you're going to see in there. You will find everything at 1Mby1M.com. It is a completely online virtual program. You can access it from anywhere in the world. So do not for a moment hesitate to apply wherever you are in the world. You can apply from any corner of the world and you are eligible. So there is absolutely no restriction on geography. You will find a terrific blog series that people have been reading. People tell me they've been reading the blog for 13 years or something like that. So it's a very well-established blog. There are books that we have published based on our Entrepreneur Journey series that people use to learn. And some of the things we've talked about are covered in books as well. You could use those as learning. These free roundtables happen every week. So if you are thinking of applying for the scholarship, I would strongly advise you to start attending these roundtables. So every week until October 28th, every week on Thursday mornings, 8 a.m. Pacific time, there will be a roundtable. And please come to these roundtables and kind of simmer in the program and just get to know the program, how it works, etc. You will see some of the online mentoring sessions in action. You will meet people. In the fall, this fall, we are doing a very interesting series of interviews with guests on exit strategy. So we have a bunch of people who run corporate development, heads of corporate development in various different major companies who are coming in and will be talking about what they think about. When they're thinking about acquiring companies, what are they thinking about? So it's very unique discussion, and you'll get a feel for what it takes to get an exit for your startup. This is the 1M premium membership is what you are applying to get as a scholarship from Datastax. So you have extensive methodology guidance, you have the access to the 1M curriculum, that's a digital curriculum, you get access to business development help, customers, channel partners, investors, media, analysts, all of that. Dig around on the website a bit. There's a very interesting tool that you will find called self-assessment. I always ask entrepreneurs to go do this self-assessment. These are the due diligence questions that investors ask you. And you should do due diligence yourself on yourself. Before anybody gets the right to ask you any questions, you should be thorough. You should be ready to answer these questions. Another free resource is my bootstrapping course. It's under 1 hour. It's a fabulous course. You should do this one just to get a feel for the philosophy of the 1 million by 1 million program and how we have developed methodology on top of this philosophy to make you successful, and it's working. Another resource, if you go to the blog, there is a blog post called Udemy courses based on 1M methodology. Again, Maureen or Sean will share this with you in the public chat. Please bookmark it. You will find in there, a large number of courses. This is the URL. You'll find there almost 30 courses. So if you're bootstrapping with a paycheck, for instance, there's a course. There's a short course, few hours with case studies. This is the most important thing, case studies. We teach everything with case studies. And in a way, you will kind of quote unquote meet thousands of successful entrepreneurs, people who have built unicorn companies, people who have raised huge amounts of money, people who have built bootstrap companies. You'll meet these people, and it's a simulation of actually sitting down and having coffee with these people and asking smart questions and learning from them. That is how we have developed the program. You will learn from people who have done it before, very knowledgeable, very successful people. And the entire course set that we have released on Udemy are based on these case studies. So you can review bootstrapping with a paycheck, you can review bootstrapping using services, all kinds of, there's a course on AI, actually AI, how to build AI companies with lots of case studies. This may be very relevant to all of you who are thinking about building data-focused, data-leveraged applications. So take a look at that page and it will give you a good idea. So in any case, the website is very comprehensive to get to know 1 million by 1 million. If you're planning to spend a year with us, it would be a good idea for you to get to know 1 million by 1 million. And the Udemy courses will help you prepare for your application. October 28th is a long way, you know. You have a good 6 weeks to prepare. So use these resources to submit a really strong application so that you can win a scholarship. So there's lots of FAQs, video FAQs, curriculum description. As I said, it's a case study-based program. There's a whole section on investor introduction policy. Just by joining the program or winning the scholarship, you're not going to get introduced to investors. You have to be ready. You have to be fundable before we send you to investors. In 25 minutes of my sitting down in front of my computer, I can introduce you to 25 investors. Nobody's going to do that for you. I will. But you have to be ready to be introduced to investors. Otherwise, you're just going to get a bunch of rejections, and that doesn't serve your purpose, and it doesn't serve my purpose. So this is why we very strongly emphasize bootstrap first, raise money later. That's it. September roundtables, basically all Thursdays, October roundtables, all Thursdays. Just book, 90 minutes on Thursday mornings for the foreseeable future and show up here, ask your questions, get yourselves ready to apply. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. Ed, Chet, do you have anything that you want to add to all the things that we've talked about so far?
No, I think it's awesome what you're doing for for the world at large, and we get up in the morning excited about the fact that the future of data is really bright and it's accelerating, and so the fact that we can get a chance to connect with the audience that you reach, the broad reach you have, is super exciting.
Great. So Sean is offering all of you to reach out to him. He is very knowledgeable about this program on the 1M side. If you have questions about the 1M program, Irina Patterson, irina@1M1M.com will be your contact person. And I think that brings us to the close of today's session. Unless I will do a last call for questions. If anybody has questions, please feel free to ask. Samir is saying something there. Let's see. 1M is a great program that has multiple support systems for you. It will challenge your assumptions, push you to address the hard questions in your business. Great place to build your startup. Thank you, Samir. That was a wonderful endorsement.
That's
All
awesome.
right. Well, we will see you soon, and look for more publications from the program to get in touch with the use cases that are validated use cases that we promised you is coming. So thank you for being here today, and those of you who are listening to this session in recording, we look forward to seeing what you come up with in your applications. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.